Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. With me, guest host, Helen. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you are a mountain biker by training.
Yes.
You're getting into the road scene. You're having some success.
Yes.
And I really wanted to talk about today's race. I'm very excited about it. It's again the Otter circuit. You guys saw my perspective. Now we're showing a different perspective. Let's get into some race footage.
Sure. Sick.
Okay, Helen. We are a couple of seconds away from the start of the circuit race. How nervous are you right now?
I'm really not that nervous at all. It's super early in the morning, and it's the first race of 3 races of the weekend for me. So this is almost just kind of, there's not a lot of stress at this moment.
Are you focused more on like the mountain events at Otter?
Yeah, for sure. This was last minute only because you asked me to do
Because
this.
I told you to go do this.
Yes.
Because I thought you would have a lot of fun, and I thought you would probably find success. So with that said, let's talk about which team do you ride for?
I don't really ride for a team. I just ride for my coach, Nate English. And so I'm out here solo. I don't have any teammates.
You know, Nate used to be on Team Mike's Bikes.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes.
He beat me many a time before I was on Team Mike's Bikes.
He's beaten many people many a time.
So he's a great coach to have. But you're racing solo. A lot of these other ladies in this race are not racing solo. They have teams. Let's talk about the major teams in this race.
Sure. So SJBC, they have a lot of riders in here. Alter Velo's got a couple, I believe. And then Fount, I think, has 2, maybe 3. And we'll actually see them later doing some interesting team tactics.
Your strengths as a racer, you're probably fine. I've ridden with you. I've raced with you. You're probably fine with this coming together for a field sprint.
Yeah, that would be fine. I wouldn't have any stress if it came down to a group at the end.
But you want to mix things up. It's an interesting course. Stretch the legs a little bit.
Yeah, well, once again, Jeff gives me some tips for how to make this race exciting and tells me to go solo 'cause YOLO as his last pre-race text. So that's in the back of my head for this whole race is Jeff's famous last words.
And we'll get to that. But let's talk about the course. For those who didn't watch my coverage, which is already up on the channel about this race course, we'll just recap really fast. Some crosswinds going on, but the major feature on this course, this is the Laguna Seca racetrack. So this is a really fast course. It's meant for race cars. And it has this big hill on it, which you guys are climbing right now. It's kind of in 2 parts. This first part is, I don't know, what do you think, 6%?
Yeah.
And then you make this left-hand corner. It flattens out just for a second. And then in a moment here, you're going to see the power go up and the speed come down. That's because the second bump is the very serious one with the crosswind. I can see you getting to the right-hand side of the road, which is the correct side of the road here with the left-to-right crosswind. And yeah, here we go. I mean, 12 miles an hour, 11 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Power continues to climb because this is probably like 15%. And corkscrew descent, a couple of pretty technical corners before you get to the finish line. Let's fast forward a little bit and let's see how this race shakes out.
Sure.
Okay, so we have fast forwarded to 3 laps to go. In fact, it's like 2.5 laps to go. And you guys remember, Fount is one of the major teams in this race. They're these 2 ladies in green, and one of them just launched an attack off the front.
Yeah, and at this point in the race, we still have 3 laps to go, or 2.5. So there's a fair amount left, but I'm a little cautious because I don't know these riders, and they could be super strong. So I kind of moved to the front here. I'm making sure it's going to get brought back. I'm looking around at who's chasing. We see Fount's teammate over here to the right, really aggressively moving to the front. And I'm not really sure what's going on at this point. I'm not too focused on her yet. But as you see, we'll come over the top. I move to the front, just kind of hang out there, looking back over my shoulder to see, if people are coming up on me or not.
And we talked earlier about Helen's plan of like, hey, if it comes down to a field sprint, that's fine. But that doesn't mean you sit in, at the back third of the group and just like hope it falls into your favor. So I wanted to like compliment you on being alert, like especially the critical moments of this race, like the steep climb. You move into the correct position. You are keeping track. Okay, 1 Fount rider is off the front. That's not so bad with 11 kilometers to go. If like a Fount rider, an SJBC rider, and an AV rider all came together off the front and you're at the back of the pack waiting for the field sprint, that's a bad situation for you. That's where you lose the race, or you have to spend all your energy chasing. So that's a good lesson right there. Like, stay at the front. You did the right thing there. And now you have to chase a little bit. You want to keep the tempo nice and high because yeah, sure, it's 10 kilometers to go. There's only 1 rider, but that could be a solo move that wins.
Yeah.
that's not completely unreasonable. And plus, she opened up like 20 seconds right away.
She's not. I can't even see her. Like, she's got a gap here. I mean, she just left. But I'm looking back over my shoulder here, and I see, people coming down the hill after me. So, I kind of sit up here, power drops. I let people sweep around because I don't really want to be in the front unless I have to be. So we'll see. The first person to come around me up here on this corner is not someone you would totally expect.
This is where the weirdness begins, because you have an obligation to chase this Fount Rider back. There are a bunch of other women in the field who have an obligation, but her teammate does not have an obligation to bring it back, and she's
hammering,
riding, which is great news for you.
Yeah, I'm totally happy to sit in on this group of I think there's 4 or 5 of us right now, and let her own teammate bring the breakaway back.
And she's not done yet. Just a couple of kilometers later on the approach to this climb, she takes the front again. She was sitting second wheel. I thought, Helen probably thought the same thing, like she's just going to sag and chill and let her teammate open up a bigger gap. But Helen's doing like 400 watts, which is a
solid number.
Very serious effort that her team, that the Fount's teammate is doing on the front to chase her other Fount teammate back. This is all very bizarre to me, but you're reaping the rewards of their poor strategy.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to sit in here. I haven't been on the front since it initially went off the top of the corkscrew, and I've just been sitting in, letting her teammate and some other people bring her back, and we just start to see her at the top here. She's not too far up. I just kind of end up moving up here, and then she gets caught at the top with her teammate on the front, hammering away at 300 plus watts.
Yeah, so you're 100. This is a hard effort, 180 beats per minute, but you still have another 10 beats per minute. This is still very controlled for you. Fount's done a good job chasing Fount back, and now you're in a position to respond to the next one.
Yep. We have about 1 lap left.
So she's eventually brought back, and now we have fast forwarded to the last lap. The group is all back together. The group as it stands, right? Because it's been a pretty hard race up until this point, and I think probably half the field remains. Everyone's pretty tired.
Yeah, it's maybe 10, 15 riders at this point, and only a couple strong ones are at the front at this point that I'm looking at.
So what's your plan?
Well, I was perfectly happy to sit in for the field sprint, and it was going through my head. However, that text message that I got from you reminded me to do something a little more exciting. So at the top of this climb, I kind of open it up, not 100%, but I'm doing, 500-600 plus watts for a couple minutes up this.
Harder than you've ever done it in this race so far.
Yeah, this is my hardest effort in this race. Trying to get a gap. I'm looking back to see if I get a gap. And I do have a bit of a gap, so at this point I'm like, okay, we're all in. Hopefully Jeff's advice is gonna work.
This is the reason. So this is the reason why I think this is a good strategy. Even if this doesn't work, let's just say, worst case, there's an SJBC rider in your draft who refuses to help you with this effort. That's fine, because you're going 12 miles an hour up this really difficult climb, and pretty much all the ladies behind you are having to do the same amount of power in order to maintain that gap, or to close that gap. They have to do even more. So if that's the case, if you have a barnacle, as we like to say, who is just stuck in your draft, not willing to pull through, you just pull the plug and you say, well, I'm not going to drag you to the finish line, and then you roll at a reasonable pace. You get picked up by the field, who is going to be in ribbons after this attack, and then you can still pop off that field sprint. Yep. But that wasn't the case. Tell us what's going on here.
Yep. So at this point, I have a gap. I know that I'm pretty much all in for the finish.
No barnacles.
No barnacles. No one yet. So I keep looking back. I keep the power pretty high when it flattens out the last little climb. And there are actually 2 riders who do kind of catch up to me through this last couple sections, but I'm constantly aware of where they are, and they don't actually end up coming up on me to the finish line.
I love that you keep looking back too. I can see your shadow. You just keep looking back and checking your gap. I hear this thing, it drives me crazy. The race is in front of you, never look back. But that's the worst advice ever. You have to understand what's going on behind you. That informs what you're going to do in the race. So you keep looking back, you realize, okay, well, there's this group of 2 that is trying to get across to me, but I'm all in now, I'm committed. Go solo, 'cause YOLO, as my frenemy Brian would say. And I'm happy to report that it works out.
Yep. Come around these last couple corners and come across the finish line in first.
So stoked for you. Congrats on the win.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'm even more excited to talk about is you raced an Olympian the following day, right?
I do, and it's a very interesting race.